All right, so in this video, we're going to go through what I call the 5 kind of core fundamentals of supply chain management, kind of the 5 main activity areas that will be affected by supply chain management. So if you're a supply chain manager, you will find yourself most likely involved in one of these 5 areas. And so we'll probably split this video up into 2 parts. And so, but I'm going to give a little bit of an overview, and then maybe deal with the first 2 sections, and then we'll do the other 3 in the next video. And so what I really want to do is kind of create in your mind here from the beginning the broad picture of supply chain management, and then from that we can work into some of the individual units and look at them a little more clearly, but it'll be good to have kind of a big picture, right? So there are 5 of these kind of core activities. So the first one is what we'll call planning and strategy. Planning and strategy, right? Okay. Then the second one is sourcing. Then the third one is the transformation or manufacturing. And we're going to go through each of these individually. But then fourth is delivery. And then the fifth is customer service. And restocking. Okay. Customer service and restocking. So what we want to do is kind of look at each of these kind of pieces to the puzzle of what it means to produce something in a manufacturing context, to build something, to have a supply chain, right? So the first one is our planning and strategy, right? So planning and strategy simply means that this is the organizational component, right? This is the organizational component of putting together the order and the process of everything, making sure that all the resources that are needed to produce the product are in the right place, right? So that's the key of this first part, is this is the organizational part, making sure that all of the resources that you need to produce the product are in the right place. So this is kind of maybe the broad picture of how you want to have this set up. Often the corporate executives will create a broad plan and strategy often with advice from people that are in supply chain management, but it will often come from the executive level. They will create an organizational blueprint, right, of how this supply chain is going to work. And it is up to managers then to execute their strategy, or some companies might, they might rely on a ground-up approach where they say, hey, you're the manager in charge of that department, make sure it works. But the trouble with that is that one manager in an individual unit doesn't necessarily have a big enough perspective on everything the company is doing from one end of the supply chain to the other. So typically, the supply chain overall strategy is done at an executive level, right? And then so you have kind of that corporate level. Then in your day-to-day execution, right, the day-to-day stuff is typically under the umbrella of a large strategy. But I mean, you know how stuff is in any given day. It could pop up. It could be a little different day-to-day. There's situations that arise, slightly different demand and stocking things, that kind of stuff. And so you have managers in place to execute the broad strategy right? But then yet at the same time to handle instances that come up on a day-to-day basis. All right, so the planning and strategy part is really connected with each of these, right? So it's not that that these are all totally different. You have a broad planning and strategy that really incorporates each of these next four elements, right? But you still need to have at least this in there so that you understand that a big part of supply chain management is knowing these four components that we're going to get to and understanding how to create a strategy and a plan to where each of these following four that we're going to get to all work together, right? And so we want to make sure that we've got a good plan and a good strategy in place, because the people that are doing the sourcing and the people that are doing the transformation, the people that are doing the delivery and the people that are doing the customer service, they don't necessarily communicate with each other. And they don't know, somebody that's dealing here doesn't know anything about the sourcing components. They don't know anything about the manufacturing aspect. You know, they may know a little bit, but they're not in tune with that. That's not their department, right? So to begin with, there is an element of supply chain management that has the broad picture, that has to make sure that everything fits together the way that it should. And it's a composite of the following four that we're going to do: the sourcing, and I'll just give you a brief explanation of what each one is. The sourcing, that's getting in the raw materials. Manufacturing is the production of the product, changing, that's what we call it, the transformation process, changing raw materials into something else. Delivery is making sure that it gets to the customer or to the retailer, and customer service deals with issues that pop up. This isn't necessarily issues once the customer has it at their house, although it could be, but primarily in supply chain management, this is, you know, say you send 100 to your retailer and they say, hey, we only ordered 80, right? So now you've got a customer service issue that is affected by your supply chain, right? So you have your overall planning and strategy, and then the other one that I want to touch on in this video is sourcing, right? And so sourcing is the process of acquiring all the raw materials that you're going to need to produce your product, right? So a few things to think about that. If you're going to do this well, you need to generate a list of suppliers. You don't want to have just one supplier for any one product, because things happen. They could go out of business. They could change their prices. They could be unable to meet your demand, how much you need. They could have holdups in delivery. Maybe they're going to be able to produce your order, but it's going to take them a little longer than what they thought. And then you may have to cancel the order and say, no, I mean, if you're delayed, then we're delayed, which means we're going to look bad to our customers. We've got someone else that sells the same thing. I'm sorry, but on this order, we're going to have to go to them. You need to have that backup plan for each of your raw materials. There should be multiple sources that you can go to, right? But you'll probably want to have one or two for each raw material that become your main suppliers, that you have a strong relationship with them, to be able to generate discounts, good relationship, have a free-flowing system with them, because one of the components of sourcing is being able to create an invoice system with them so that it is a seamless thing, that they know you, they know that you're good to pay your bill, and so when you need the raw materials, you've got a seamless invoice system with them. And that's part of supply chain management, is creating the ordering process with each of these suppliers, right? So you're going to create a list, you're going to research, and you're going to figure out who are the suppliers of these raw materials that seem to be the best on the surface by what they're offering. And then you're going to go into a step where you begin to develop a relationship with them. You tell them what you're doing, you begin to develop a relationship, you begin to develop a system whereby you can order from them quickly whenever you need it, and you begin to develop a way for them to send you the invoice, for you to make payments and orders, with your suppliers. So that's a major part. And then when you're creating this list of who you want to get your supplies from, you got to keep in mind that price is not the only factor. It's an important factor, right? Because if the more you pay for your raw materials, obviously, then the more you have to charge for your product. Or if you keep your product price the same, then higher prices on your raw materials eats into your profit. But either way, obviously, a lower price is advantageous, but it's not the only factor. You want to look at the quality. If you're paying a lower price for something whose quality is really low, maybe you don't want to go there, right? Maybe you want to make sure you keep your quality high, or maybe you don't. Maybe the quality of that particular product is not an issue for your company, whatever. But the quality is a thing to evaluate right alongside the price. Some other things are their customer service. If you do have a problem with what they send, are you just stuck with the bad product, or are they helpful? All right, do they have good customer service? If you get a bad shipment of something, are they going to stand behind their product and resend you some new stuff, right? So what is their customer service like? And then what are their delivery times and shipping costs, right? You may look at the per unit cost of a raw material and it may seem low, but if they're shipping it from another country, then their shipping costs are going to be way high. And so you have to factor in shipping and delivery costs. And if they're shipping from another country or even from another state, then delivery times are going to be different, right? And so that's all things that you want to factor in. How long can you wait on the shipment? If it's coming from China, it may be 3 weeks or 4 weeks before it gets to you, right? If it's coming on a semi from the West Coast and you're on the East Coast, it may take you 5 or 6 days to get it that way, right? And so there's different things to think about. What is your time frame and the costs of delivery? So there's a lot of things to think about when you're getting your suppliers that you want to factor into your decision when you're choosing your one or two, right? And then the other part of sourcing that is a manager's responsibility is to make sure that someone is verifying the shipments when they come in, right, on your end. So as you're getting in, now it may seem like a small deal when you're only getting in 1 or 2 boxes or something like that, but as your company grows and you're getting several shipments at a time, right, then you need to have as part of your sourcing process a mechanism whereby the order is inspected and confirmed so that you make sure you got what you ordered. And so that's an important part of the sourcing process, is a verification of shipments, right? Okay, so these are your first two. We're going to go through the other 3 in a separate video. But your planning and strategy, right? So that as a supply chain manager, you will be knowledgeable of these 4 areas. And so you're going to look at what the company is trying to do and their goals, and you're going to seamlessly weave these 4 elements together into one strategy. And then you're going to have people, or if it's a small business, yourself, whatever, but you're going to have somebody responsible then for executing each of these 4 parts of your overall plan and strategy. And then with your sourcing, that deals with everything that is connected with getting the raw materials from your supplier into your facility so that you can then move on to the transformation process. You can't transform raw materials if you don't have them. So an important part of your manufacturing process is creating great relationships with suppliers and maintaining those relationships with an efficient system of reorder and payment, right? And a back-end system where you're making sure that what you have ordered is verified when it comes in, okay?